Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange Podcast. Stories by leaders for leaders to help you raise the bar on your own excellence, to release the potential inside of you. Now, here's today's podcast. Greetings, friends. This is the version of the Nonprofit Exchange that's the Hugh and Russ show. Russell David Dennis, Hugh McPherson Ballou. We are going to chat today about some of the great things that we've heard in the past podcasts. We create a lot of content, and it's time to reflect on that. Russell, how are you doing today?
It is a beautiful day here in Denver, Colorado. It did snow a little bit yesterday. Now it's gone back to Denver-type weather, at least for the front range here. And there's a beautiful cap on the mountains that you can see for miles and miles coming in. So life is good.
Your life is always good. You make it that way. You know, when I lived in Colorado, they had a saying, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes.
It does change frequently. And so we're expecting some pretty mild weather, for this time of year. But the skiers are happy. We've got a natural cap. The snow machines are going. And let the skiing begin. And it will continue through May.
Through May. Wow. So we're live on Facebook. We record our podcasts as a live video feed. So if anybody's listening to the Nonprofit Exchange podcast, feel free to join us on Facebook Live on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And you go to thenonprofitexchange.org and it will lead you there. We'll revert to the page where we've posted the past sessions and we create new sessions every Tuesday. And Russell, I find that when we're doing it live that we have unexpected participants that join us on Facebook. I also find that there's an energy with creating that live event. What's your experience with this?
Well, I love having people come in and share their experience, and because it enhances the program. We've got David James Dunworth, we've got Bert Oliva in there right now, two really fine men who are excellent businessmen and thought leaders, and men that I follow on Facebook. So it always enhances to have input from other people to answer the questions that are burning in people's mind and to give them things to consider, because as nonprofit leaders, you're running an enterprise. It's a business like a lot of others. And the big difference is the tax status. There are problems with people and business and just operating that can be solved, and leadership issues. And so these are things that people want to talk about. So I like to bring people things that they want to hear about. I love when people ask questions, because it gives us points for discussion. We find out what sort of things are important to you out there, and that's what matters to us.
And I was with both Bert and David 2 weeks ago tomorrow down in Florida. And we managed to dodge the weather and do some meaningful things in between the storms. But as I spend time with both those gentlemen who are both watching right now, I really appreciate the level of skill they have and the level of expertise. Now, David Dunworth has been on this podcast. I've talked to Bert, and he and his team are going to be part of this interview process next month. Their calendar is pretty full. But I look forward to having them, and the fact that you're connected with them is also great. Let's talk about some of the. We've been doing this Nonprofit Exchange. Our magazine editor, Todd Greer, Dr. Greer's a organizational psychologist. He's got he's got a degree in organizational leadership. And his wife's a psychologist. He's a pastor, but a PhD in leadership is not a bad credential. He's the editor of Nonprofit Performance Magazine, and he's down in Mobile, Alabama, working as a dean in a university and doing really fine work. And he started this 3 years ago. Very visionary. Helped start the magazine, and we started the Nonprofit Exchange. So thanks to Todd for that, and the history we have in this podcast. And we have tens of Oh, did I lose you and you're back? I think Russell is.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Wait.
did you go away? Did you hear anything what I just said?
Very little of it. We had a little bit of a freeze there momentarily.
You know, high tech is really great
Can you
when
hear
it
me
works.
okay?
When high tech
Oh,
works,
yeah.
it's great, but when it doesn't work, it really stinks. What I was talking about the history of this podcast, and it starts as a video and then goes into the audio nonprofit exchange podcast, which you can find on iTunes and Stitcher and most every platform, the nonprofit exchange. But Russ, you and I've been, you have shown up faithfully as a unofficial co-host, but try to get out of it now. You're part of this process. What is, how long have we been doing this together? Has it been a year? We seem to have a little technical difficulty right now because Russ, you seem to be frozen, and it might be me.
Well,
It might be as
but I think we started fairly 2016, but I've been consistent. We've been co-piloting during the week, and one of the things that has been pointed out, because we've had people that have come in and talked about the use of technology for nonprofits and using it well. And technology is something that can enhance what we're doing, but it's not used well. As a nonprofit leader, not to be afraid of it. And a lot of things for you.
Hey, Russell, we're having some technical difficulties right now. Your sound is breaking up and stopping, and now your picture is frozen. So I'm going to continue. Russ, come back in when you're live. I want to
grants to nonprofits to actually get their message out there.
Hey Russell, did I disappear? I had a little snafu.
Very briefly, but I've kept going. So I'm still going out. So it might be a little bit of a bandwidth thing that you've got going over there. But hang in there. I don't know if you've got some apps open that you might be able to close.
Well, I was going to blame it on you.
Oh, well, yeah.
I'm hoping that audio continued because I didn't hear anything, and it could have been my own frailty here. I did change devices, though. I'm on a different router now. And
okay, well, it seems to have cleared the problem up. So, and I was talking about technology because that is so important to everything we do. And one of the things that I was talking about getting messages out there, but it can be used to reach your audience. You can actually do a little bit more in terms of determining who the people are that are listening to you. And you can get your message out in more cost-effective ways than you ever were able to do it before. But like anything else, the thing that has been the overarching message that our guests have put out as far as using technology and social media and connecting with people, it's all about relationships and building good, solid, and strong relationships with the people you serve and those that you're serving. So technology is not a substitute for that, but it's a way to actually extend that reach in a cost-effective manner.
absolutely. So, Russ, let's talk about if you're willing, some impressions from the. Tell me again when you and I started doing this together.
Well, I think we started moving consistently in February because I'd pop in and out in 2016, but I've started showing up consistently, and we've been here. I've been on just about every broadcast. I've had the honor and the privilege of standing in a few times. for you when you had other things that you had to get done. And so it's been beautiful. It's been a great thing for me. I've done some other broadcasting too. I like this talk show hosting. I think it suits me.
You do it very well, and you've had me as a guest on your show. And you know what we've learned in our association with a group called CEO Space. We've learned the power of cooperation, and we've taken it to the collaborative level. And there's plenty of room for everybody to play because it's a big playing field, and we bring it to a new paradigm. Let's look over some of the past podcasts, and we have had the pleasure of interviewing some really amazing people. And I don't know about you, but I learned from every single one of them. As a matter of fact, every time we talk, I learn something from you. You have some sound bites that are incredible. And you're very well read. You continue working on self. And I remember Jim Rohn, in his speeches, he would commonly say, work on yourself harder than you work on your business. And that's my sense of Russell Dennis. You're always improving your own self. And you've done many worthy things in your career. And what you're now doing is bringing all that value to people and who need it. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Let's collaborate on thinking about the wisdom that we've gathered from some of these people we've interviewed recently. So what are some of the messages that jump out to you from those great interviews we've had?
Well, one that stands out because we've had several programs on it, but we were talking with, and I'm drawing a blank, but here's the panel discussion that we had that really sticks in my mind. Several weeks ago, we were talking about diversity. And this is a discussion that I've been having with people all over the place. In fact, I had a discussion with one of my classmates from the sponsorship boot camp around diversity. And this lady's a naval officer, and she was a pilot. So she experienced some interesting reactions from her fellow pilots, naval pilots. It's pretty much a boys' club. And so when we get into diversity, we can get stuck on race, but there's not just race. There's age, there's gender, social economic status is really critical. And some of the things that I've read in the nonprofit press show a lack of diversity in our nonprofit boardrooms, our bigger nonprofit boardrooms. And so that has an impact when you don't have a diversity of leadership, a diversity of thinking styles. You leave a lot on the table. And that's been something that's been uppermost in my mind lately, as far as some of our discussions go.
Well, that's Dr. Theon Gordon you're referring to.
Yes.
Yeah, and the more I talk to her, the more I appreciate the depth of her wisdom and character. And yes, the context behind both her and Mr. Lewis. I'm thinking of his name. Bill, is it William Lewis?
Dr. William Lewis. Yeah.
Yeah, they're both doctors and very, very skilled people. And I was the white guy on the call. But it wasn't, as you have very carefully placed, it's not about race. We think it's about race. Now that's a factor, but how about, I'm a boomer, how about millennials? How do we get along? We don't, because we don't understand each other. The gender you talked about, the sexual preference, what is your lifestyle? Where did you grow up in the ghetto? So there's so many dynamics. And when I participated years ago in working with a company in Germany that holds a competitive event called the World Choir Games, there are 400 choirs that show up from 100 countries. That's diversity. That is amazing diversity. And people come together around a common thread, which is music, excellence in music. And there's community that happens, not because you force it to happen, but because we all celebrate our diversity and we celebrate the commonality, which is music. And I think we forget to think about the things we have in common. And we think about what we have that's different rather than what we have in common. And, Russ, even within a white church that has mostly people from one generation and one socioeconomic sector, there are diverse opinions, but they're trapped in this container, not being able to get outside of their point of view and so somebody from outside to ask questions. What about this? Kind of opens up the conversation, but we do get kind of closed in without thinking about possibilities. We just think about what we've always done. And what I've gained out of that particular interview, which was brilliance of two of our guests, is there's some other things we could think about. Here's some other values that we could bring. And is it about diversity, or is it about inclusion? And is it about bringing creative energy into your organization? So that call was not only about race, it was about a whole plethora of other really powerful things. Am I remembering some of the same things you are?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's exactly sort of what I took away. And here's where you have these things potentially show up in a bad way if you don't have that diversity, because it's understanding the populations that you serve. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the populations look like everybody else, but some of them don't. And if you're running a nonprofit and you're trying to serve a population that you don't have that solid connection with, it could reduce your effectiveness and your efficiency of doing that. So there's all sorts of problems and other articles, and I would love to bring those up. And we discussed maybe doing another panel, and I've talked to a couple of people that probably be good for that once we decide we want to do another one.
Well, let's spin on that a minute. If you're listening to this podcast in diversity, inclusion, building creativity on your board and your culture generally, if that's a topic, please go to the podcast and do some comments. It is on the CenterVisionLeadership.org website, and there's a place for comments. We very much welcome comments. And if you're really into growing the culture in a creative way, I don't think you can do without some diversity. What do you think, Russ?
You've got to have it. I mean, that's being recognized by a lot of the new research that's out there. Read in the Chronicle of Philanthropy some of their findings. So those ads are out there, and it's really important. So people are finding that this is critical. The Denver Foundation, right here where I worked, they did an inclusion project and put quite a bit of money and research into it several years ago to actually tackle that problem. So they've got great material on their website. The denverfoundation.org website has great material, and they actually put some of the questions that they asked and a little bit of information on some of the participants and some of the types of questions that they asked. And they'll be happy to talk with you about it if you want more information.
What I'm inclined to do, Russ, thank you for bringing this up. This is a really important topic. I think there should be a series of group discussions on this topic because it's such a big topic. It's such an important topic, and it's there. When we had that call and I did a debriefing from the two guests, they both said there's lots more content. There's lots more sub themes, and we introduced so many themes in that call. So what I think you ought to do is challenge me, or we'll challenge each other to put a series of these conversations together, and we might have to do it not at this time, but do it this time and broadcast it at this time to be able to accommodate the variety of schedules. I want Warnie Reed, the race professor at Virginia Tech, on the call, and Andy Morikawa, my original founding board member, who have really good wisdom on boards and diversity. And there's some others that you and I have talked about. So I think there's lots of sub-themes for us to work through and develop. So what do you think of us having a series of conversations about that topic?
I'd love to do that. And as a matter of fact, I have a preliminary agreement. I've got Andy Sue Phillips, who will be appearing on the Nonprofit Culture Success Show on November 1st at 4 p.m. Eastern. And she and I are going to be talking about diversity. We're both veterans. She's very interested in coming on, doing a panel and talking. And she's experienced this, and she's actually put together a very interesting program that a number of major businesses are looking at on diversity. They sort of found her and approached her on the subject. And so I'm excited about that conversation that we'll have coming up, where she can talk about some of those tools. But a series, and we got a number of things. I think you could spend an hour on gender on one program. You could spend an hour on age, particularly the disconnect between boomers like ourselves and millennials. And it's really a communication thing. And a good friend of mine, Brooke Chestnut, that I went through the Colorado Speakers Academy with, has put some programs together to help organizations that are looking to recruit millennials actually get that done. And he put together an interesting concept that he called reverse mentoring. So I think it's about time. It's been a while, but it's about time for me to give young Mr. Chestnut a call.
Well, he could be one of those panelists, couldn't he?
Very, very easily. And so, I mean, that's a piece of his work. And another good friend in the area, Russ Maneri, does a lot of work around making sure you hire the right people. He's masterful at that. And he was on my show a few weeks back. So you got the conversation around age, you got a conversation around gender. Her being a veteran and me being a veteran, that opens up all sorts of doors for this conversation, and I'm looking forward.
And me too.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. And then, of course, there's social economic status, and people who actually are in need of a lot of the services that nonprofits provide. And so a big mistake I've seen people make over the years is that they got wonderful ideas and they want to help, but somewhere along the way they neglected to talk to the people that they're actually putting the program together for. And lo and behold, they had everything designed, they had it funded, they built it, and nobody came. So it's really important to talk to these folks and to find out how they want to be helped. Because if they're accessing different services, well, they know where the bodies are buried, so to speak. They're experiencing these gaps in what they're getting because there's just something that falls outside the purview of the guidelines. And so they're actually struggling to fill all the needs. And this happens with everything, especially with school. Students can go out and get scholarships and not be able to take advantage of them because of the hidden costs, like the fees and the flights, the textbooks. There's just things that show up that nobody accounts for. And Tandy Caraway was on the Nonprofit Culture Success Show last week, and so I have to put that replay up. But
well, this people will be listening to this way after the dates you gave, so let's give a link so people can find that.
I will, yeah.
So you'll put it in the notes, but what is that link?
For my the Nonprofit Culture Success Show is on Facebook. So I have that every week. And it's a webinar. It's delivered like this broadcast is. So I deliver it the exact same way.
Great.
So if you look up on NP Culture of Success on Facebook, you'll get connected there.
NP meaning nonprofit. NP Culture of Success.
Yes.
Well, yeah. That's a really good program, and you interviewed me a few weeks ago, I've been in a thread with some really fine folks. So Russell, when you were talking about doing programs that they hadn't checked out, it reminds me of a Robert Frost poem. It says, "We sit in a circle and suppose the secret sits in the center and knows." Does that resonate at all?
That's pretty good stuff, you know. And David weighed in. He said there's a lot that we can talk about where diversity is concerned. We have got Bill Ballou, who has just joined us a few minutes
Bill
ago.
Ballou from Shelby, Tennessee.
Yeah. Posey Jones is here. So it's good to see. Yeah. So lots of wonderful people here joining us today. And so with these types of discussions, what I'd really love to see, I'd love to have more people come in, weigh in. What are some of the things that you'd like to talk about? Thomas, hello. Thomas Vozella. Welcome, Thomas. I'd love to have people, either go to the page, because I have that Facebook page for Nonprofit Cultural Success. They can come on our Cinevision page in the discussion area, and I'd love to do some Q&A and find out what people really want to talk about, and do more interactive type stuff, or find out what people are interested in or what they're struggling with, because that's another way we can add value.
I'm going to ask David Dunworth what are some of those topics that he comes to mind. He said there are lots of topics that we could do the facets of the show. So I'm just going to mind. So David, if you want to articulate a few on the chat in Facebook, we could mention those. So Russell, we've looking at some of the past podcasts. Last week we had our friend Joe White, who had an amazing presentation on goals, and I teach goals, and I said in that show that Joe did that module in my workshop. You've done your module twice, and everybody I've had present a module does a far better job than I do. So Joe came in and presented goals and it was resonant with what we have defined in Cinevision, but he did a stunning job of that. And he talked about his GPS system for setting goals, which I found to be very powerful. And the Covey principle, sharpen the saw, comes to mind with people like that. We're always working on our tools, sharpening the saw so we can be better. And you and I are no spring chickens. We've learned a lot of stuff. We have a lot of stuff, but we're not sitting on our laurels. We're actually growing our own skill and being able to share the wisdom and experience and the skills that we've learned over the years. Do you remember that conversation with Joe, and anything come to mind from that for you?
Well, the thing that I loved about his GPS system is that it's incredibly powerful. There's a lot of power in it, and the power comes from the simplicity that he rolls it out there with, because almost everybody that drives can relate to a GPS. It kind of makes you wonder how we ever got anywhere without them. Yeah. They've become so widespread that we're used to them. But the focus, the power to focus that comes from using a simple system is what comes through. And I think that any good system is easy to access, easy to understand, and easy to use. And that comes from my friend Brendan Burchard. That's not one of my originals, but it makes perfect sense, because a lot of people in the industry, and I had that conversation with him, I've had that conversation with other people in the personal development industry, maybe 2 or 3 out of every 100 that actually pick up a system, implement it. And this is where I want to help people get beyond that. If there's something that people can use in simple steps, they're going to be more likely to apply it. It's not going to be overwhelming. And that was Joel's GPS system. It fit that. It's a textbook example of that principle.
And he did a very good job of explaining it and laying it out, and he had a free gift. So we don't number the episodes of Nonprofit Exchange. So if you just find the one on Joe White setting powerful goals, that's a good one. Now we're going to expand some of their topics coming up, and David Dunworth had filled in some. One was outsourcing and its challenges because of preconceived notions. And I find a lot of charities and churches and synagogues say we don't have time to do all these things, yet they want to hire people, but you could outsource some of these things if you had sufficient time to develop your plan and your methodology so you could hand it off. And one of the basic tenets of transformational leadership is being able to take things off your plate and empower some other people to do. And you and I have talked about the burnout rate with nonprofit leaders, and it's unusually high. And part of it is that we get stuck as leaders doing too much, and then we're not effective as we could be because we've got too much on our plate. So one of them is outsourcing. We think giving things to other people is a weakness in leadership when really it's just the opposite. And some other topics that he threw on the table were gender bias, the glass ceiling, young versus old, the color barrier, the multicultural world is here. So those are some of the topics. I think besides being the glass ceiling, and that's commonly used with women who are limited. Now, I find that there's a lot more opportunity for growth and taking charge for women in the nonprofit sector because they have a unique ability to engage people and to bring in some fresh ideas. You know, a lot of the old white guys like me get stale. And so there's a freshness with especially the women leaders of any race or any age there. But I think there's a great opportunity. The ceiling that John Maxwell talks about is the lid. The lid is our ability to lead the organization. That's a leadership issue, not a diversity issue, but it also could be a diversity issue if we had somebody that brought different skills. Are we going to put a lid on them? And many times we have this scarcity thinking, and it's not just the lid that Maxwell talks about. Is his framing is that the organization cannot develop any further than the leader's ability to lead it. So there's the law of the lid. But sometimes it's not the leader's fault. The organization and the culture puts a lid on that leader. No, we don't do it that way here. And you and I have seen circumstances that happen in groups where we've participated mutually. So talk about that in a minute. The framing of leadership and the ability of the board to let the leader lead if they show some competence. Have you seen what are some things you've seen and what can you share with people?
Well, you know, I'm working with the group now that is actually got good intent. It's a new organization. They asked me to serve on their board, and there have been some struggles with understanding what it is that they want. And, you know, really that speaks to the outsourcing that David was talking about. You got to understand what it is that you want in order to be a good customer, you know. Mm-hmm. So that takes some definition, and a lot of social profit leaders are new to doing what they're doing from a social profit realm, or you know, they're taking on a big challenge, and there could be some fear, actually be some fear around whether some things are going to work. They're trying new things. They're trying things that are outside of their comfort zone. And those are things that can hold folks back. And so it's just really expanding the thinking outside of the old traditional limited realms. And good leaders build other leaders around them. There's no better way to look good than to have a great team of leaders around you, because they're actually doing the stuff on the ground. And if you're the leader providing direction, these folks actually make you look good. But it's really when you bring people onto a board, or you're a board and you bring somebody to lead your organization, you're putting them in a position of trust. there's a lot that you're expecting them to do. So if you don't give them the tools or the autonomy to actually get things done, to leverage that creativity, you're going to have a little bit of trouble. Because one of the things my good friend Doug Krug talks about is, the brilliance of your team. You've got a lot of brilliance under your roof, a lot of people that are dedicated, motivated. But if you kind of suppress that talent and you don't let them shine the way they want to shine, they're going to walk away. And I don't think that it's fully a pay issue. It's really an issue of, am I making a difference here? And this is really important for millennials. They want to do work that matters, and they don't want to be micromanaged. No one wants to be micromanaged. So it's having that trust in your team and not being afraid to make mistakes that'll propel you forward. And those are several things that transformational leaders do.
Absolutely. I'm looking over some of the recent podcasts, and I encourage people to go and look at we do develop a transcript from the interviews and put it in the Nonprofit Exchange podcast. And going back a while, you and I did a podcast on what was that one? The five top things that block a leader's success. Mm-hmm. And that one had a lot of plays. That was in April. And there was also an interview we did with Dr. David Gruder, our friend who's an organizational developmental psychologist. And it was about the people that are controlling the board with their anger. And there were some things that he gave us that were really helpful. And I've seen lots of boards where, we can't do that because it will upset so-and-so. And so people tiptoe around the topic and they avoid dealing with it head up. And what I heard with that and with some other of my studies is when you have conflict, you move toward it and you remain calm and you address the facts very directly. And we tend to avoid in the effort to be nice. When we're trying to be nice to one person, like on a board, then we're devaluing every other person because we've let that person take us hostage. So that was the interview with Dr. Gruder, which was before our discussion on those five things. But that one spoke to me especially in a special way because I see that kind of thing happening an awful lot. And that was back in February, believe it or not. February.
I think I've got that. We did that in June, I believe.
The Gruder.
We did talk with David. One of the things I believe that was the February discussion was the discussion on the relationship that we have with money.
Shadow. You're so right. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
But that particular program, he talked about the strong personalities on the board, and
June 4th.
if one person dominates a lot of the conversations and he talked about how they go about really just sort of getting their way and actually short-circuiting in the conversation that people have, and that's just not a good thing. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do, I can drop that into the chat box. I want to just drop that link into the chat box. And that's from that particular broadcast. But we have these, and so that's a good one to go back and listen to. If you've got a strong personality that you're concerned about. And Dr. Gordon did a podcast that addressed boards too. Absolutely. Hers was also in, I want to say that one was in June or somewhere close by.
I'm looking for it while you're talking about it. Yeah, that was a real
April 11th. And so that was about empowering your board and structuring a good board. And that I was actually absent that week that you and Dr. Gordon talked about boards. What were some of the things that she brought up?
Oh, there were a number of things, but it was empowering the board by asking them to do things. And going back to David Gruder's piece, we let other people's emotions control us, and we have our own scripts that sometimes are not true. And so there was some synergy in the two presentations with Dr. Gruder and Dr. Gordon, in that she encouraged us to step up and ask board members to contribute both money, time, and talent. All three. Sorry, not both, but all three. And we tend to overcompensate by saying, "Oh, I'll do it for them, they're busy," when that's not what they want. What they want is meaningful contribution. They're on the board because they want to give their skill set. That doesn't mean they're going to work every day for you, but it does mean they want to do something that's meaningful and see an impact on the organization. So her presentation is very valuable, and it's one of the most listened to episodes on the podcast over the last 3 years. So it's Dr. Theon, Thynonne, Dr. Theon Gordon, and you said it was in April. That is a very popular podcast, and it's a very important podcast, and it's on a topic that I think a lot of boards struggle with. And absolutely. So David Gruder talked about shadow in February, but he talked about the anger specifically, how people control boards with their anger. And that's something that we tend to cave into, but is not very, very helpful. And we're talking about David Dunworth, who was watching us on Facebook at the moment. He talked about the brand and connecting it to the board. The brand has impact. The board has impact on the brand. The board represents our brand. Your employees represent the brand. You represent the brand. And we tend to think, oh, I'm a nonprofit, I don't have a brand. Well, it's important that you have a brand identity, a brand promise. It's important that you know what your brand is and everybody supports that brand. So David has lots of skills. His particular channel that day was talking about your brand, and what I remember coming out of that is how people behave around that brand. Do you have some thoughts about David and what he shared?
Well, yeah, it addressed the leadership, and so his key message was that leaders are actually are the brand, and they present the brand, they build that. Once they build that, they safeguard it, and they provide the direction that makes sure, because the brand is really what you're all about. I know a lot of times the word brand will bring up thoughts around some sort of packaging or a snazzy jingle. We think about that sort of thing. We think about it in terms of marketing. But a brand is really a statement about who you are, and everything that you do flows out of that. And David was talking eloquently about the leader's responsibility to make sure that you have that brand, you have all of the integrity and the ethics, the integrity, and the effectiveness around that brand, and you build on that, and that it guides what you do, and that your leaders actually reflect that brand that your nonprofit is out there. That's a very good podcast. I did put that in the chat too, so those will be in the notes for folks that missed those particular ones. I'll drop those in the notes because they're great to go back to us. So I tend to make a list and go out and grab all of these links as they go up, and so that I can go look at them. Because there's so much that we learn from those that you can't absorb it all. A lot of that I have to go back to and listen to again and again, and that's the beauty of the internet. We archive these videos and they're there for our review, and the podcasts are even better because you can listen to those on the fly. I put them on my iPods, and and I can plug my iPod in the car, and I just got it to go. And so there's not even fighting with CDs anymore. There's Bluetooth, and there's technology again, and it's beautiful when it works. which is most of the time.
Well, it is. It is. Now, the 7 essential skills for nonprofit leadership success, that is one that you and I did. We went around that number 7 because you had found 7 to be powerful. The podcast that Todd Greer did years ago was on community. That's by far the most listened to episode, and it was relaunched on August 11th as an archive replay. The other one is the Drucker Challenge, Managing Oneself in the Digital Age, was relaunched as an archive. That was Frances Hesselbein and her Leadership Institute. She's an amazing person who's much older than you and I, but shows up to work because she has a passion for creating value in people's lives. And she's very clear on who she is and what she offers. So the other one I wanted to lift up, we're coming close to our time. I like to not go over too much. So the due diligence one with Thomas Mauviel. You interviewed Thomas. That was one of the times you got to do an interview and didn't have the burden of Hugh Ballou getting in your way. But that's one. It was before you launch an idea, can you do some due diligence? Does the world need your nonprofit? And I thought that was relevant. I met him at a conference and invited him in because and you may have more relevant statistics than this, but my memory is that half of the nonprofits that are formed every year will close, and they're not able to fully achieve their mission at any level. And it partly might be that maybe the world didn't need your idea. Like that thing you talked about earlier, you go all the trouble to launching something before you did a checkup to see if it's really needed. So what do you remember do you remember that interview that you did with Thomas?
Yes, it was quite a while ago, but yeah, one of the things that David pointed out is that brand philosophy and its tenets have to be present throughout the whole organization, not just with the leadership. And, Thomas and I talked about some of that identity, but what we were really talking about was making sure that you understand what it is that you do and what you do differently, So the whole concept behind does the world need your nonprofit is understanding clearly what the problems that you solve are and focusing on things that you really do well. And so that was a big key. That was a big key takeaway that a lot of folks just don't do that as well as they could. And so we talked a little bit about some tools for doing that, but most of the emphasis was on the importance of doing that, whether it's with a program or specific people that you go to attract to your organization, but it's really having that focus on the people that you're serving.
Amen. That was a really good interview, and I saw him on Saturday and thanked him for that because I just had a hunch that would be something valuable, and it's been one of the most listened to episodes. So as we do a wrap here, Russell, I thought it'd be good for us to pause in our pretty active schedule of interviewing thought leaders and for you and I to reflect on some of the lessons and help people think about what they need next. And as I'm looking over the list, since you and I have been doing this, there are a number of very, very powerful interviews that have, of course, the transcription there, but they've got things that could be implemented, like the David Corbin interview about brand slaughter, which is the title of his book, the Penny Zinker interview about how to gain control over your life. It's about that time robber. George Fraser talked about building a legacy, and he, of course, has the largest African-American network in the world and is very humble about it. Don Green talked about the Napoleon Hill Foundation. He's going to contribute for the magazine about boards, and that board uses business principles to support that nonprofit. And then our friend Shannon Grunich did Getting Unlimited Publicity. And so there's a whole methodology under that, which she's so brilliant about. So, Russell, as we draw to a close, I customarily ask our guests to think about what they want to leave people with. And so maybe you and I could take a turn doing that. What is your thought that from all the wisdom that we've been able to partake in, what would you say to people listening to this podcast that you would wish they could do with some of this wisdom?
Well, I would say go back to it, refer back to it regularly, and never stop looking for ways that you can do what you do better. Always work from your strengths as much as possible, and find partners and other people to collaborate with so that you can cover those areas that you don't necessarily do well, because you're going to be much more effective just living and working in your genius and trusting that to make an impact than trying to create a new genius for yourself. Do what you do your thing. And that's really the most important thing, is to really work from those strengths and always be learning, always keep learning, always continue to look for opportunities to collaborate. Learning's a never-ending process. And don't be afraid to try new things. If you're feeling stuck, stop and think about some of the people that you already have, either on your payroll or who are volunteering or who are writing your checks. It won't hurt to ask your donors for ideas. Ask them what they'd like to see. It's about getting people more and more engaged with what you're doing, and letting them know that what they're contributing, whether it's time, talent, treasure, or all three, let them know how important that is. Let them know what's possible through that regularly.
Well, Russ, that's really great. You took the words out of my mouth. I find people say I don't have time to listen to podcasts. Well, do you ever drive in your car going anywhere? I never have the radio, anything but public radio and my podcasts. And I learn every time I listen to a podcast. What I appreciate about Russell David Dennis is that you're always working on your skill. You've got a book you're working on. And what you pointed out is just because you've listened to it or read it doesn't mean you know it all. And what I've learned from our friend Ken Courtwright is he goes back and he reads great books again with a different color highlighter. And he finds that when he goes back and highlights passages that stand out to him, they're different than the ones he highlighted the first time. Either we didn't see it or didn't understand it, or we weren't ready for it. We weren't ready to learn it. So I applaud what you said. That is a very good reminder for me. Just because you read it, just because you listened to it, doesn't mean you shouldn't listen to it again, because you're ready to learn the next thing. Russell, I'm grateful for you. Thank you for being on this series of podcasts. And I would like to encourage people to go back and listen to this library of wonderful resources that we have as a gift for you. And please share your comments. Please share the podcast on social media or on your email, because we want people to listen to them. They're free. This is our gift to you. Russell, thank you for today. I'm grateful for you, sir.
It's very good. And folks, don't keep going back to the Center Vision page, the Nonprofit Culture Success pages on Facebook, the Nonprofit Exchange channel. Make sure you subscribe to that. Subscribe to it on YouTube, and check back regularly. And go in the comment areas and let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear about, because we're here to serve you, to help you make more impact in your communities.
Good words, Russell. Thank you so much.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.